Yo, stop what you're doing. Because Barbados is taking Israel to court. Yeah, the Caribbean just stepped into one of the most heated conflicts in modern history. And not with popcorn, but with petitions. Let's walk through the article line by line, and I'll add in the facts, context, history, and maybe a little holy fire as needed. Let's go. A landmark legal challenge has begun in the High Court involving two foreign nations at war, as the Caribbean Movement for Peace and Integration, CMPI, presses for urgent national action on what it describes as Israel's atrocities in Gaza. Pause. First of all, two foreign nations at war, and one of them is not Barbados. Yet somehow, Barbados is trying to act like The Hague. Like we're the United Nations with coconut trees. But okay, let's keep going. The historic case, heard by Justice Dr. Herbert Patrick Wells on Wednesday, calls on the government of Barbados to align its foreign policy with international humanitarian law amid overwhelming global evidence of genocide, war crimes, and crimes against humanity against the Palestinian people. Overwhelming evidence? Really? Let's slow down. This is where things get messy. Is there suffering in Gaza? Absolutely. Is it tragic? 100%. But genocide is a legal term, not a TikTok buzzword. If you're accusing Israel of genocide, you better also mention Hamas firing rockets from schools, using civilians as shields, and holding hostages. And if we're demanding accountability, then hold everyone accountable, not just the one country where Jesus was actually born. Justice Wells stressed the need for the matter to proceed swiftly, citing the accelerating humanitarian crisis in the Gaza Strip. He's right. There is a crisis, but there's a difference between compassion and confusion. What's happening in Gaza is not simple. And if Barbados is going to make rulings on foreign wars, we better do it based on truth, not headlines. The case was brought by CMPI Secretary David McDonald Denny and is led by Human Rights Attorney and Secretary of the Caribbean Against Apartheid in Palestine, CAP, Lalu Hanuman. Respect to them for organizing. But let's be honest, these kinds of groups often cherry-pick their causes. Where were they when Yemenis were being bombed? Or when Nigeria's Christians were being massacred? The silence was louder than a dance hall bass line. It names as respondents the Minister of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade, the Director of Public Prosecutions, DPP, the Immigration Department, and the Attorney General. So they're trying to drag the whole Barbados government into this, over a war thousands of miles away. Meanwhile, our local youth crying out for jobs, education, and security, and we're busy drafting motions against Israel. The claimants are seeking 6 core declarations from the Supreme Court. Let me guess: genocide, war crimes, apartheid. Yup. That Israel is committing genocide in Gaza, that Israel has committed war crimes, that Israel is guilty of crimes against humanity, that Israel is operating an apartheid regime. And I gotta stop you right there. Apartheid? Israel has Arab judges, Arab doctors, Arab members of parliament. Try that in actual apartheid South Africa. I'm not saying Israel's perfect, but words matter, and this ain't it. Also genocide. Meanwhile, Hamas's charter literally calls for wiping out Israel, but that gets skipped over conveniently. And that a failure by the DPP to investigate or prosecute any person in Barbados allegedly connected to the conflict constitutes a breach of the Genocide Act and Article 11 of the Constitution. Wait, what? Barbados should prosecute people in Barbados over the war in Gaza? So if someone in Bridgetown donates to an Israeli charity, are we calling the police? This sounds more like performance politics than actual justice. A declaration is also being sought that rigorous screening must be implemented at all ports of entry to Barbados for Israeli passport holders. So we're racially profiling now. Imagine the outrage if another country said, screen all Bajans at the airport. You'd riot. But somehow it's okay when it's Israelis? And that any person linked to war crimes or genocide must either be prosecuted locally or deported, regardless of diplomatic status. That's bold. But Barbados doesn't even prosecute our own corrupt officials properly. How are we going to try Israeli war crimes cases? Members of CAAP attended Wednesday's proceedings in support of the action, along with students from the University of the West Indies Faculty of Law. A good lesson in law, but let's hope they also learn the importance of balance, history, and truth. Because, let me break it down real quick. History time. Everyone loves to talk about slavery and justice, but let's be consistent. Yes, Christians had slaves. So did Jews. But when it comes to Africa, the Muslims did far worse over a longer time. From the 1100s, Arab Islamic caliphates invaded the Sahel, launching brutal jihads to wipe out African traditional religions. They enslaved millions, not just Africans, but also Europeans. And they were the main suppliers of African slaves to Europeans. So when you say justice for Palestine, cool, but don't erase the history of Arab conquests in Africa. Don't forget who sold us out. Let's not swap one-sided injustice for another. The hearing has been adjourned until Monday, July 21st. We'll see where it goes, but I hope Barbados chooses truth over trend. Final word. As a West Indian Christian, I don't support everything Israel does, but I support Israel's right to exist, defend itself, and not be the world's favorite punching bag. Jesus was a Jew. Israel is where the Bible took place. And if we're serious about justice, let's apply it across the board, not just when it's trendy. So shout out to CMPI for making noise. But let's also make sense. Like, comment, and subscribe if you want more real talk like this. No fluff, no fear, just facts and faith. Thanks for tuning in.
We face the same timeless choice that Moses put before the people of Israel thousands of years ago. As we were about to enter the Promised Land, Moses told us that our actions will determine whether we bequeath to future generations a blessing or a curse. And that is the choice we face today.
It is the same Bible that tells us in the stories of the Old Testament, much which has guided many people across this world. But when we turn from the Old Testament to the New Testament, it is Romans that says to us, "Vengeance is mine, saith the Lord," not any country, not any human being. So that the Bible can't be used as a convenient aid when it suits us and rejected when it doesn't.